everybody! This week on Ask Kristen, I'm talking about awkward conversations, which is something, finally, that I'm an expert in. Not necessarily having awkward conversations, but rather being awkward in conversation. So maybe I'm not actually an expert. This week's Ask Kristen question is coming from Christiana. I was wondering if you could do a video on how to ask if a past sexual partner is clean. The one time I asked, the guy yelled at me and said he had an STD when he didn't, just to frustrate and scare me. Why did this happen, and how can I avoid being treated with such disrespect? The STD conversation is one that we don't have often enough. A, because of stigma around STDs. B, because of lack of understanding about how STDs and STIs actually work. And C, because a lot of times we are having sex in more hookup context, and so it might not seem as important to talk about that personal stuff like, you know, risks of contracting STDs or STIs from each other. But it's a really, really, really important, and yes, sometimes awkward and difficult conversation to have. Before we get into the STD/STI conversational how-tos, you want to know, why did this happen? In other words, why did that guy intentionally lie to you because he got his feelings hurt and wanted to get back at you by frustrating and scaring you? Honestly, because he's a jerk? Considering all of the cultural stigma around STDs and STIs, it's understandable that he may have gotten his feelings hurt or his pride wounded, but seeking emotional revenge for that is not the sign of a healthy relationship. But that's in the past. Let us now look to the future. Wait, the future is this way. To the future. While you can't entirely jerk-proof your life, there are some best practices for talking with sex partners about STDs. Number one, start with yourself. Are you up to date with your STD testing? If you have an STD or an STI, do you know all of the ins and outs of how it works? If you're in a situation where you might be having sex, do you have a game plan for how you might want to talk about it, or kinds of barrier methods you might want to use to make sure that you're both protected? Think about these kinds of things before you try to bring it up to somebody else. Number two, do it early. And by it, I mean talking about it. And by early, I mean before sex. And by before sex, I mean before you're in bed or in the bedroom or in any kind of state of undress. Once you're in the heat of the moment, especially if you have alcohol in your system, you are far likelier to just think about it briefly and then think, eh. Number three, use a condom anyway, especially if we're talking about a hookup situation, because that person could say, oh yeah, I totally aced my STD test, but in fact, that person didn't. That person just wants to have sex. Also, too, someone might think that he or she does not have an STD or an STI because a lot of times they are asymptomatic. Just use a condom anyway. Number four, when you have the STD conversation, don't make it about past sexual history and number of partners. Your number of sexual partners is correlated to your risk of contracting STDs and STIs, but it's also frequency of sex. So if someone is in a monogamous relationship, it is still totally possible to contract an STD or STI from that other person. You can be sexually promiscuous and also healthy and safe at the same time. And number five, make it inclusive. Rather than saying, are you clean? How many people have you slept with in the past? Open it up so it doesn't seem so possibly judgmental, and say something like, hey, why don't we get tested this week? The more you know about your own sexual health, the more peace of mind that can give you, and peace of mind in the bedroom, whew, that's the thing, Elle, and everybody else out there, you need to remember. It is perfectly reasonable to ask these kinds of questions, to have this kind of conversation, to expect disclosure. We hear this all the time. Talk about it, disclose, disclose. But the fact of the matter is, especially in more hookup context, I don't think that it's happening with very much regularity. And I think too that we avoid getting STD tested because of the stigma around it. But the more we do it, the more that we talk about it, the less shameful all of this is going to become. We need to stop being so scared of it and start having these conversations. And I'm so curious to hear from all of you how these conversations tend to go, if they even happen at all. Are you someone like Elle who has gotten blowback if you tried to bring up STDs before? Are you someone who has been shamed if you disclose that you have STDs? Or are you someone who's like, nope, I am not gonna have that conversation. I don't wanna kill the vibe. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks everybody who watched and commented on last week's Ask Cristen video. Should girls be proud of their periods? And oh wow, I have never seen so many comparisons of having a period to pooping. Rochelle2227 said, as some have already said in the comments, I don't think you should be proud of your period. However, I don't think it should be as hush-hush as it is. The other day I mentioned to another coworker when a guy at my work was acting cranky that I should be the cranky one because I'm on the first day of my period, and he told me TMI, and apparently had mentioned it to a supervisor later. Given he's only 15 years old, but still, girls should be allowed to casually mention something period related without someone freaking out. And Elizabeth commented, I think people who menstruate should embrace it and not be ashamed of it, but being proud of your bodily function is silly. We aren't proud of peeing, are we? It's not an accomplishment, is it? That was the general sentiment among all the comments, was seriously, being proud is a step too far. Just let a period be a period. And also, guys think that periods are absolutely nothing, which made me laugh because dudes, you know that if you had periods, it would be talked about. As always, please let me know all of your questions. They don't have to be related to the thing that I'm talking about in this video. Let me know in the comments below. You can also email me, momstuff@howstuffworks.com, or you can tweet me at Cristen Conger. Questions, hashtag Ask Cristen questions.